Hi, I'm Femi OK. Today on the stream, I'm going to take you into the world of Barakat, the movie. The South African film is the story of a family getting ready for the Muslim festival of Eid. It revolves around mum and widow Aisha, who is about to introduce a new love interest to her sons. Set in the Cape Flats, spoken in a Cape Town dialect, and that is what makes the film so special. Have a look.
Ik wil zo'n beetje stilstaan deur te praat oor Barakat. Al die Barakat wat ons gekry het in ons lewe. To be grateful is very important. Our families, our fathers and mothers, our sisters and brothers, those are all gifts that we were given. Die van ons wat vergiet, hulle sal aan die verloor kant wees. Nie net in die dunia nie, maar ook in die akhira. We forget what we've been given is really a boon. The belief that you and I have, die soetheid van die iman. How many of you have tasted that sweetness? What do you see? Us.
Hello, Amy. Hello, Ephraim. Hello, Vinette. So nice to see you.
Hi there.
I am going to get all of these amazing people to introduce themselves to you in the context of the film, who they are and what they do. Amy, you start.
So I'm Amy Jefter, and I am the co-writer with Ephraim and the director of Barakat. Yeah, that's my role on this film.
Ephraim, go ahead.
I'm Ephraim Gordon, and I'm the co-writer with Amy and the producer of the film.
Oh, South Africans are going to be yelling at the screen any moment now. Hello, Vinette. Introduce yourself.
Hi there. I'm Vinette Ibrahim, and I play the mother role of Aisha in the movie Barakat. And I'm also mother to everybody on the set of Barakat.
Oh, we're so happy to have all three of you. Barakat means, if you're wondering, Barakat means a blessing. So we're blessed 3 times over. If you would like to speak to any of our guests today, YouTube is open. The comment section is right here. Comments, questions about Barakat, the movie, you're very welcome to be part of today's discussion. There's a sense where the film just starts, guests, and it doesn't give you explanations. It's a family drama, and you just got to come along for the plot. There are a couple of things that I want to just make very clear for our international audience. When we talk about coloured people, Ephraim, can you explain that to our international audience?
Well, coloured people are, in my opinion, a bunch of fortunate or unfortunate people who couldn't fit into any other racial category. So we're mixed people. Our DNA runs wide and deep. It crosses continents, and no 2 coloured people have the same genetic makeup. Well, maybe if you have a twin or a brother. But yeah, we're a mix of people, but we have forged the community over the years and over the decades to the point that we can see ourselves as a people. But our gene pool is wide.
So a category that was set up during the apartheid era. Amy, go ahead. But now you're creating your ownership of it right now, right?
I actually just want to add that it is a racial category that was created during apartheid by an apartheid government. And so it was a racial classification at the time of the Population Registration Act, where people were divided into groups, white, black, Indian, coloured. So as much as we identify ourselves politically as Black South Africans, coloured was an imposed racial category that was for bureaucracy and also for the apartheid government. And I think now is this fresh wave of young filmmakers and young activists who are claiming back that word. And we are kind of taking a word that has a lot of loaded political meaning from the past and turning it into something that we can celebrate and be proud of. And create a heritage around, even if that heritage isn't hegemonic, it's not one idea, there is no singular colored identity. But out of this, we're creating and celebrating ourselves for the first time, I think.
What's also interesting.
I just want to add to that. Sorry, if I may.
No,
sorry, sweetheart. I just want to add to that also that, as Amy says, we are not an homogenous group. We're made up of all people of brown skin, and some people find it offensive to be called colored because of the label which was given to us by the nationalist government. But, just this weekend or 2 weekends ago, I listened to a wonderful speech by Dr. Alan Busak, who again just affirmed for us that we have to kind of let go of the shackles. And it doesn't matter, who you are, whether you term yourself colored or people of the Kamisa, or whether you, whatever you call yourself, it's a question of a mind shift. So I think that people of color in this country are really, it's a celebration of who you are, and that is where we are, I think, at the moment.
Fabulous melting pot. Let me just bring in here Chantal Stanfield. She is an actor, singer and writer. Ephraim, have a listen to Chantal, and I want you, Ephraim, to respond to her comment. Here it is.
One of my favorite parts of Barakat, the movie, was obviously seeing the culture and history represented in such a positive light. But also a character like Butaman, a relatively small cameo by someone we in the entertainment industry know very well. But the character selling his spices and his wares in Afrikaaps, but also using those idioms that we in Cape Town know so well. It's so quintessentially Cape Flats that it's so difficult to describe what it meant to see that on screen. It was beautiful.
Well, if you look specific at a character like Butaman, like Chantal just said now, he as an actor is completely truthful to the point that if he doesn't want to stick to the words, he doesn't stick to the words. And I think that's why it sounds so natural, because he says what comes to him in the moment. If it throws you off as a going across him, that's fine, because it keeps you on your toe as well, on your toes. Yeah. So I think that's what makes that character so special and so free and so relatable, because it really was real. He wasn't acting. I mean, his name in real life, everyone calls him Butaman, And that's a thing with actors in Cape Town generally. It's we are such a performers people or performing people that things feel natural because people just are. They don't try to act, and I think part of this film was beautiful in that sense.
The reality of it. Let me just throw in something else that Chantal picked up. Afrikaaps.
Yep.
It's a dialect, and I want to hear some. And also, I said at the very beginning, this is a very special film because this film is in Afrikaaps. Amy, you start, and Vinette, you pick up.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so great about this character, like Butaman, right? He's an older man, and he speaks a very beautiful, poetic kind of Afrikaans. I think what was very important for us with this film was to legitimize that language, whether you want to call it a language or a dialect. That offshoot of Afrikaans. It's a creolized version of the language that was first spoken by slaves who were brought to the Cape, a way of speaking a language that their slave masters could not understand. And so they created this fusion of languages that is a mix between Dutch and English and Arabic words and Malay words. And so we have this this lexicon that is brimming with metaphor and poetry and image and borrowed words from many continents. And so when you speak it, your mouth is like a spice mix. Yeah. And some beautiful lines that I don't know what. Can you remember some of the lines?
Do not taunt me with how beautiful it sounds without giving us some Afrikaaps. Go ahead, Vinette.
Okay. So
Ons vat vandag, Ons gaan vanaand curry en rys maak. So ek het al die materiale wat jy nodig het. Ons het net body shop en Jazeera nodig en ek gaan nou vanaand of ek sal nou môre middag na Gatesville toe gaan om te gaan koop. Gaan jy saam na die barbie toe?
What are you saying to us?
So, what I'm saying is that I am going to make curry and rice, and I've got all the mixture that I need, the matajala. I've got all the mixture, but I don't have fennel and cumin, so I'm going to the shops tomorrow to get some. Are you going to go along with me?
All right, so on YouTube right now, we have Mishka Muller from Cape Town, South Africa. Mishka says, so great to see our small community on the world stage. That is why I think Barakat has taken off, because people are seeing communities, they're hearing language they haven't seen on film, either very often or ever at all, or in a stereotype. Let's, I want to show a clip. This is one of Ephraim's favourite clip, and I love this, which was the family that we're following, Aisha's family. You see the family growing up and gathering around this very Eid special table. In Afrikaaps, what's the name for Eid, Vinette?
Labaram.
Exactly, it was on the tip of my tongue. And you see the family going from when they were young to when they were older, and you see the story unfolding in front of your very eyes. Have a look.
Aisha, weet je die dansjes gemaakt? Nou zie ik jou maar nog allemaal bij je.
Maar, Abdul, ik vergeet wie is Raisa?
Wie is Raisa?
Okay, who's cutting onions in the room? We're crying here. This is really emotional, right? Vinette, stop cutting onions. Amy, this film is special because you're breaking boundaries and you're smashing stereotypes. Can you tell our international audience in what way you're doing that?
I think it's in such a small way, not in the usual way that I think activism is seen to be a lot more sort of performative, a lot more expressive. This film, I think our aim was always to do it in a very delicate way, and that is just by foregrounding the humanity of a people, a culture, a community where we might not have seen that humanity foregrounded before. It's about telling a story that can just be simple, that's just about family relationships, and it's about nothing more than that. It's not about the wider politics of the country. It's not about wearing those politics on your sleeve. We're telling the story of a family coping with grief after the loss of a father, a feeling that is really universal. And I think foregrounding that humanity was always the key for us.
Can I add, Vinette, before you jump in, this is Justin who's watching us right now. Thanks, Justin. He's from Los Angeles. I think what's so powerful about Barakat, Justice says, is even for those who don't know the culture, the themes of family and moving on are universal, both specific but still wide-spanning. Vinette, pick up.
Precisely. This is exactly what I was going to say. Even though we might think that it's a small movie, that it's a slice of life, and yes, it is, but it's a slice of everybody's life. It's, what everybody can relate to it, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Mexican, English, you name it. It doesn't matter. It's everybody's life. This movie just is such a depiction of that.
I'm going to bring in one other voice here, Ephraim, and you can respond to Adam. He's from the Centre for Film and Media Studies. He's a director and professor at the University of Cape Town. This is what he had to say about Barakat.
For this particular genre, I think that the film is most interesting to me as a scholar in its use of CAPS. We've reached that period of our history where the people are validating multilingual expression. And what this screenplay does in its use of CAPS, it presents characters from Cape Town, from the Cape Flats, as nuanced characters, not cardboard cutouts. And CAPS has been used beautifully, I think, to capture not just the humor in the narrative, but the intimacy and the conflicts, the subtleties that I think represents characters from the Cape Flats as not just cardboard cutouts. CAPS isn't just the language of conflict and violence and aggression, of pathology. I think this film is also effective in resisting Orientalist tropes of Muslim communities.
I think what's interesting about what he says is it takes us back to what Amy's comment was, just a comment simply about humanity. For too long, CAPS was associated with the underclasses. It was a comment somehow on our intelligence. And that made us two-dimensional, even one-dimensional characters. And I think what CAPS now has done, and what this film and films before this have done, is to legitimize us as a people who feel, who are intelligent, and who operate in the world at large, and not just in a certain corner of the world. So I think CAPS has been legitimized in this film and by films before this. And the more we say it, the more we give dignity to the people who speak it.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad you said that, because Christ Chan, who's watching this, says Afrikaaps isn't a language. It's the lack of language filled by different languages from actual cultures. Amy, do you want to pick up on that? I introduced it as a dialect, a Cape Town dialect. Go ahead.
I think at this point, it's disingenuous to say that it is a lack of language or that it feels like a negative space. I think there's a reclamation that has been done, and that reclamation is up to no one except the people who speak it to take ownership of. It's not anymore about validating whether it's a language or not, or a culture or dialect or not from the outside. Where I don't think looking for that stamp of approval from anyone except ourselves anymore. So I think the ownership that's been taken of the language and the dialect recently by filmmakers like us is like, we don't need gazes. We don't need any other gazes on ourselves. And there's a beauty to Afrikaaps and a poetry to it. It is our mother tongue. It's the tongue that we were born into. It's the tongue that our grandmothers spoke. It's the language that we inherited and that we now kind of claim as our own as well. At some point I feel like we don't need a validation from anywhere, whether those spheres be from academics or from outsiders, or from people who think that who call themselves pure Afrikaans speakers, whatever pure Afrikaans means. I think it's exceptionally important that Afrikaaps is part of the growth and advancement of Afrikaans as a language. I feel like it's one of the only ways that Afrikaans as a language is going to move forward, is to be in collaboration with Afrikaaps, because it's a language that is spoken by a very large majority of Afrikaans speakers. And it is our time now for that language to be on the world stage. And I think Barakat has proven that.
Look at the discussion we're having about Afrikaaps on Al Jazeera, on an international network. You did that. Vinette, go ahead.
Yeah, and I also would just like to add that, it's actually becoming accepted even by academics. We are at this, while we speak, there is a dictionary being brought out. It's going to, I think it's going to be fabulous, because people are actually going to be learning to speak Afrikaaps, and it's been, it's there even for academics to learn, and people are, they are accepting of the fact that Afrikaaps has become an accepted, well, I'm still not sure whether we call it dialect or language. I think we still, there's still a discrepancy about that. But let's claim it and let's celebrate it.
I would like to play one more clip from Barakat, the movie, because you can't see it everywhere right now. You can see it on DSTV. So if you're on the African continent, I'm jealous, right? Because you can see it. Elsewhere, we'll talk to Amy and Ephraim and Vinette about where you might be able to see it elsewhere and when. But I'm going to take you to Masjid. There's this beautiful scene. There's prayers being offered during Masjid in Barakat, the movie. Take a look.
Ek wil so 'n bietjie stil staan deur te praat oor baraka. Al die baraka wat ons gekry het in ons lewe. It is incumbent on us to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. To be grateful is very important. We should be grateful because all things that we have been granted come from our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbul Alameen. Our families, our fathers and mothers, those of us who are still fortunate to have them, our grandparents, our sisters and brothers, our own children, those of you who are married. Those are all gifts that we were given. How often do we take things for granted? There's a sweetness to the iman, the belief that you and I have. My question is, how many of you have tasted that sweetness?
Ken says, I can't wait to see this film. Ken is on YouTube. Johnny Pham, I am so pleased, all caps, to see these stories be given a global platform. What you see in terms of the plot and the story is also reflected behind the scenes with the behind-the-scenes crew. Amy, you called yourself an activist, a film activist. Tell me about the activism you did behind the camera with the crew.
Yeah, for sure. I think we wanted to make sure that the people who were working on it and contributing and were collaborators were people who were from this community. So our crew was, I think at some point, like probably 97% colored, like majority colored. A lot of them were Muslims themselves. We made a conscious decision not to, of course, film on Friday, which is Jumu'ah here in Cape Town as well. And so we observed the Muslim Sabbath day. I think it was very intentional for us to also make the journey of the film one that was in service to the story. And Ephraim had like a big hand in that as the producer. I think if he being quite intentional with how we chose our crew.
Ephraim, people are asking, where can we see this film? Where can we see Barakat? And you have an international audience. People are eager to see it. How are they going to see it?
Currently, you can, it's on a pay-to-view platform called Eventive. You can check it out there. There's two different ways to see it for when you're on the African continent or outside. So be careful which link to go into. It's very clearly marked. But also, if you're in South Africa and on the African continent, you can get it on DSTV box office. It's been placed back on box office yesterday. So it should be back there. So those are the two avenues at the moment.
Fantastic.
And we're looking at...
You can tell that Ephraim is the producer because he knows these facts. They are at hand. Ephraim, Vinette, Amy, what a pleasure. Thank you for sharing Barakat with us. We wish you every success with the film. And YouTubers, appreciate your comments and your questions. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the stream.